Allez bonjour. Donc aujourd'hui nouveau jeu qui s'appelle Horace, qui était gratuit sur l'Epic Game Store il y a quelques temps. Et je me suis dit pourquoi pas l'essayer. Alors nouvelle partie. Hop. Il est vivant. Les livraisons UPS. Rien à foutre. Ok, donc on contrôle le robot. Je peux me baisser, je peux regarder en haut. Pour le moment, c'est bien foutu le jeu. Enfin, le pixel art comme ça.
And so, I was born. The first people I remember seeing were the old man, the old lady, and their daughter, Heather. After they'd said hello, the old man powered me down so he could install some software. I could tell they were nice people. The old man didn't give me a silly voice or stupid personality. And the old lady didn't dress me like a clown. Although for some reason, Heather really didn't like me. Once I'd had time to get used to walking, the old man asked me to dash from one end of the room to the other. Next, the old man spent a couple of hours building some wooden platforms. He said he wanted me to jump up them, but I must admit, I was scared. It wasn't until I saw Heather and her mother happily climbing up them that I decided it might be okay.
Ok, pour sauter c'est là.
The old man then rearranged the platforms. He told me to try to reach the other end of the room without touching the floor. Heather said
The floor
the
is lava.
floor's made of lava. But when I smiled at her, she just frowned and looked away. The old lady arranged some pillows and blankets. She said it was in case I fell, but I think she just wanted it to look more like lava. When I reached the other side, the old man just smiled and said, "That'll do, for now."
Apprendre à marcher. Voilà, Rainbow Dash carrément.
A couple of days after those first lessons, the family had a big meal, and I was introduced to everyone else. The professor was the old man's brother. He was very quiet, and always seemed to just kind of stare at me. He had lived with the old man for 5 years. The house was so huge they barely saw each other. He preferred instead to stay in his room, leaving everything up to his butler, Mr. Deck, as he insisted everyone call him, although the professor always called him Anton. For a while, he called me the yellow bastard, but the old man made him stop, as he thought it sounded racist.
J'avoue.
Mr. Silton was the old man's driver. Before he worked here, he'd gotten in with some bad people and was the driver in a post office robbery, although it all went wrong for some reason. Mr. Silton showed me a video of his band. I'm sure some people must like it, but I just found it terrifying. Then there was Alice. She was the cook. She was a nice old lady. When she was younger, she had been a TV chef. Then, years later, she had a small part in Coronation Street. Mr. Silton said, before she worked for the old man, Alice was quite a hoarder. She kept old newspapers and bicycles. And something about a poo in a shoebox.
Hein?
The
D'accord.
next morning, the old man gathered everyone together to show them what I was capable of. "What else does he do?" asked Mr. Silton. The old man smiled. "He can help around the house." "Could he help me with my newspaper collecting?" asked Alice. "I'm not sure that's a good idea," said the old lady, "but he can do all sorts of jobs." "Yeah," said Mr. Silton, "shove a stick up his ass and he can do Deck's job." Now, said the old man, "we have company," pointing to some important-looking people. 2 large men, both called Gary, set up what the old man referred
Gary
to
1 et
as
Gary 2.
lasers. He said again, I should try to get from one end of the room to the other, but I shouldn't be worried, as I had a special chip which meant no matter how damaged I was, I couldn't die. He said it was like infinite lives in a video game. But when he realized I didn't understand, he said he would explain another time.
Ok. Merde. Con. Voilà, premièrement.
Everybody clapped,
Merci.
except the important-looking men. Not exactly a cold,
Il me fait penser à un
calculated
acteur,
killer,
l'autre
is it? Said
avec
the
les
man
lunettes
in
là, mais je
black.
sais plus lequel.
The man in grey laughed. What kind of artificial intelligence was that? He asked. Move right, unless there's something in the way. Okay, said the old man. He turned to me and whispered, they're going to make it quite a bit tougher, but I'm sure you'll be fine.
Ah non, par là. Ah, passe. J'ai pas pris assez d'élan. Ah merde. Ça y est, ça devient trop dur. Ah, j'ai sauté trop. On va y arriver. Voilà. Les nerfs.
The garage then rearranged the room one last time. The old man smiled. Now, there's no need to look so glum, he said. I'm still happy with everything you've done today. So this time, I was determined to do him proud.
Attention, calme-toi. Ah, pas assez long. Ok. Ça me touche là? Ah non, ça me touche pas. Voilà. Ça passe tranquille en son normal. Oh non, je recommence depuis le début. Oh, c'est pas évident. Bah c'est tout en fait.
The old man's friends actually seemed quite happy when I made it through. We might have a winner after all, said the man in black. It's no Killbot 3000, but you can almost see the fire in its eyes. A couple of days later, the old lady said she had a surprise for me. my own room. She also wanted to play me some music. I wasn't sure after what Mr. Silton had shown me. As if music wasn't amazing enough, the old lady then bought me a television set. I couldn't believe what I saw. I watched everything I could. Comedy, drama, horror, sci-fi. Anything anyone wanted to watch I would happily watch with them. Then one day, the old man set up a small box. He plugged some cables into the television and said, "This is what I meant when I said video games." I played games at every chance I could. I took on everyone. I was unstoppable.
En même temps, contre un robot,
I had
si tu peux le
enjoyed
faire.
music, film, and television. But to me, video games really were the highest art form.
Table tennis for two. D'accord. Oh, je suis nul à ça. Voilà. Ah! Allez, 2-1. 2-2. Le match. Yes!
Heather's birthday was a couple of months later. Her mum and dad had bought her a camera and arranged a day up by the sea so that Heather could take some photos, although I really don't think she wanted any pictures of me. When the old man asked the professor if he wanted to go, he frowned and said, "I can't believe you want to spend time with that thing. It could destroy the world." I wasn't sure what he meant, but the old man just smiled and said, "That's what you said about the Game Boy. And Tom, how about you?" "I don't think so," said Mr. Deck. "The last time I got in that car, Barry crashed us into a branch of Woolworths. I never would have gone into Woolworths of my own accord." The old man explained that the car was old and the brakes had failed, but Mr. Deck was having none of it. So Mr. Silton drove, and Alice came along for the fresh air. I enjoyed being outside. Although, the old lady kept telling me to be careful of the rickety old walkways. It felt like she was telling me off, but I think she was just concerned. As the old man and I stood on the cliff tops, I could see something in the distance. I wasn't sure what it was, so I asked the old man. He said it was a battleship that had sunk in the 1940s. But he looked so sad when he spoke about war. I didn't see what happened, but the metal platform Heather was climbing on had collapsed. She was safe, even if the rocks she was on looked very dangerous. The tide was rising, and we didn't know how long the Coast Guard was going to be, so I offered to climb down and get her. The old man agreed, but said I should be careful, as Heather doesn't have infinite lives, like I do.
Ok. Et on va sauver la gamine.
Heather was unconscious, and her leg was broken. So I picked her up as gently as I could. I decided it would be best if I didn't run the rest of the way.
Si je meurs avec la gamine, c'est game over total ou...
An ambulance had arrived by the time I had made it back to the cliff top. The medics made sure Heather was okay, and then took her off to hospital. A few days later, we all went to see how she was doing. She was fine, but would have to wear the cast for a couple of months.
Oh, fallait juste lui sauver la vie, et puis voilà, elle nous aime bien après. Les robots.
Once Heather got to know me, we became good friends. We enjoyed the same films and TV. She was also annoyingly good at some of my favorite games. After a while, she became very interested in how I worked. Soon she knew as much about me as the old man did, if not more. We spent the next couple of months visiting other countries, as when it came to teaching me things, the old man always liked to pick interesting locations.
Ah, le vieux, il escalade des
He had
montagnes comme ça.
explained the
tranquille.
basics of mathematics to me at the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Taught me history in the dead of night, surrounded by mysterious giant stones. And even showed me science in action high up in a hot air balloon. This is why I was surprised when the old man took me to a restaurant. It was nice, but it seemed very somber compared to the previous grand locations. He said he just wanted to chat, and this was nice and quiet. Plus it was his favorite place to eat. We talked about life, the universe, Douglas Adams, everything really. When I asked him why were we here, why did we exist, he just smiled and said, life is like a game, just don't expect to be finished anytime soon. When I looked puzzled, he said, well, everyone should have a purpose. So I asked him, what's my purpose? He thought for a bit, then said, so you want to be a real boy? Which just confused me even more. Eventually the old man said, for now, I want you to help clean things around the house. I must have looked unimpressed, as he then said, okay, I want you to clean 1,000,000 things. It didn't sound like the meaning of life, but I suppose you've got to start somewhere.
1 million quand même. Hein. Découvrir ma vocation. Un homme ne peut pas tout avoir. Et où est-ce qu'il le mettrait?
The next day, the old man said he wanted to install some more software, so he powered me down. When I came to, he said Mr. Silton had a joke for me, and that I should pull his finger. I don't think I got the joke. So the old man powered me down again. This time when I pulled Mr. Silton's finger, I got the joke. But it wasn't very funny. The old man then explained that he had installed a special chip which allowed me to clean away anything that was broken. He said it also tells me how many things are nearby, and how many smaller things are in a bigger thing. It all sounded very complicated, but he said all I really had to do was pause, and it would bring up all the information I needed. He then said he wanted me to find and clean all of the items in the room. He told me there would be some chains to climb, but that would be nice and easy, as I just had to press up. He then finished by saying, when I had collected all the items, I should come back here.
Ok. Il y a carrément une voiture en haut. Alors si je fais pause, 5 objets ici. D'accord. D'accord.
The old man then asked the old lady Heather and I to follow him outside. I was happy too, as it was a lovely hot day. The old man said he was worried that Alice had been hoarding again. She had filled up a small barn with old bicycles and newspapers. Heather said this would be a perfect chance to properly test my new powers. The old man thought for a second, then said, using the steptoe chip, I should find and clean at least 300 things. When we explained to Alice what we wanted to do, she seemed scared. But after the old lady kindly explained that, well, the barn was starting to smell, she said it would be okay. One last thing, said the old man. If you want to use a door, just push up. When I was about to enter the old barn, Mr. Silton said he had seen some mushrooms growing inside. He asked me to give him any that I found. He then winked, but I wasn't sure why.
Ah oui, bah oui, c'est de l'eau, je suis con. Non, je me barre. Allez hop. J'espère que j'aurai pas de soucis de copyright. les vidéos YouTube. Bon, quoi que là c'est des remixes donc. Ah, ça passe pas. Ah, toi, c'est une affiche de son ancienne émission de télé, ça. Non. Là, c'est quand elle a fait son apparition à Coronation Street. C'est ça, le nom. Ah, ça va tout le monde la pièce, d'accord. Alors, je crois que j'ai tout ramassé. Ouais, c'est bon.
The old man was very happy with everything that I had cleaned, but I think Mr. Silton was even more happy with his mushrooms.
Oh, bah, comme ça, il va pouvoir triper bien comme il faut.
It wasn't the days getting shorter, or the evenings getting colder. It was the falling leaves that really made me feel sad. As we watched the trees blowing in the breeze, the old lady said, "The leaves must fall before the blossom comes." She had already explained the seasons to me, so for once, I actually understood. But it didn't make me feel any better. The old lady obviously had enough of my moping, and said, "Right, next week we're going to have a party." For some reason she insisted that we were all going to wear costumes. Heather was very excited and said, "I've got some perfect ideas."
Ah, Halloween.
It was terrifying. Everyone was dressed like someone else. I think I was meant to be some kind of pumpkin, as everyone kept shouting, "It's the Great Pumpkin." Still, at least Mr. Silton was having fun telling everyone his joke. And I suppose Heather's costume was quite flattering.
Ah, et elle est
After
déguisée en
what
moi.
seemed like
D'accord.
forever, everybody left, and things got back to normal. Heather was allowed to watch a scary film before she went to bed, but I had to help Alice and Mr. Deck clean up. I wasn't happy about this, but the old man said if I was quick, then I could watch the end of the film with them. Alice was vacuuming, and Mr. Deck was taking down the decorations, so I thought I should clean up the plates and glasses. The ear-splitting sound was the fire alarm. As usual, Mr. Deck blamed Mr. Silton, saying he was probably smoking one of his jazz cigarettes. But then the professor appeared. He said that there was something burning in the kitchen. Alice looked confused, saying that she hadn't cooked anything since the morning. We were all surprised when Mr. Deck opened the oven. Inside was a large black cloak and a slightly burnt pair of men's underwear. Suddenly the old lady burst in. She looked terrified. She kept shouting, "There's someone on the roof." When we went outside, it slowly became obvious that it was Mr. Silton. He was completely naked and playing his guitar. He shouted
Ah
down,
merde, les
"When
champignons,
I
fait
finish
fait.
this song, I'm going to fly." The old lady said, "Oh my God, I know this one. There's only about 30 seconds left." The old man then quickly turned to me and said, "You know what to do."
Ah, ok. Ah, ah. Et merde. Ah mais non mais... Je vais sauter.
By the time I had made it up to the roof, Mr. Silton was beside the edge. I tried to calm him down, but he was acting even more bizarre than usual.
Ouais, forcément. Sauf l'idiot local. Android.
After an hour
L'idiot
or
du
so,
village, c'est ça.
Mr. Silton was fine. He said he had eaten some bad magic mushrooms. Part of me wondered why he hadn't doubled in size. Still, he was soon laughing and joking with the paramedics. One of them said he looked like the world's worst clown. I don't think Mr. Silton liked that. So he told his own joke. but that just made the other paramedic call him Marshmallow Marceau. I don't think he liked that either, but at least he was still in one piece.
Salut Grelode, comment ça va? Le truc Final
A month
Fantasy.
or so later, Heather and I were playing video games when the old man said he wanted me to come outside. He said it had been a year since I had arrived, so
Bah
he
ça
had
va,
a
là
present
je découvre
for me.
Horace et... C'est
He
pour le moment
placed
c'est vraiment
the
bien.
teddy bear high up on a wooden platform. He then told me I should try to pick it up.
Alors... Non, je dois passer par là.
Try as I might, I
Ah,
could
d'accord.
not reach the teddy bear. However, I still don't understand what happened next.
Ah merde. Bah voilà. Ah ça a été rapide. Rip le vieux. Non mais c'est pas avec ta blague de merde là que je vais me rallumer, merde. Extrêmement bien foutu comme scène, non? Même en pixel art comme ça, la vache. Ah. Il voit tout. Il sait tout. Ah, ça outrun.
Was I dead? Was this heaven? It sort of looked like the basement bathroom.
Ok, je me suis réactivé en ayant tout compris.
It was the shoes the old man was going to give me. I thought I might as well put them on. They were just the right size. The old man's hat fit me pretty good as well. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I wore it. Amazingly, the shoes allowed me to defy gravity. Or maybe it was the hat.
Ah, stylé. D'accord. Rien n'est beau si on prend tous les points de vue. Mon monde détruit. Oula, alors, attends, on va se calmer là. Ah ouais, donc j'ai juste à marcher comme ça en fait. Gotta go fast.
Part of the basement was flooded, and the stairs had collapsed. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I wanted to get back upstairs. The gate was locked. I would need a key to open it. The gate was locked. I had to be careful. The electricity was going haywire in some places.
Ok, là je peux descendre. Ça marche pas. Si je fais comme ça non plus. Non, là je peux pas sauter. Comment faire? Et puis l'eau, pareil. Y a rien là? Ok, y a quoi? Ok. Oui. Alors je suppose que je dois atterrir sur le truc gris là, mais comment je peux faire? Bon, je suis obligé d'aller là. Pas d'autre... Ah non, je peux pas, genre foncer et... C'est les deux au milieu là qui m'embêtent. Ah, comme ça. Oui. Oh, ça va me rappeler The Bridge. Oh non. Pas The Bridge. Ok. Ah oui, donc je peux sauter comme ça. D'accord. Merde, je peux le prendre. Non mais il faut que tu sautes aussi.
How long had I been asleep? Months? Years? I was so confused. Where had everybody gone? I was slightly scared. This was the first time I had been outside on my own.
Enfin ça va, il y a pire comme endroit. Hein.
I knew what I had to do. This had to be my purpose. I would clean a million things, so I could become a real boy. Whatever that meant.
Merde.
The screaming was coming from one of the bedrooms, but the stairs were blocked by a wall of fire. The people screaming turned out to be a man, a woman, and their children. They were confused and terrified. At first the man looked like he was ready to fight me, but after I convinced them that I was there to help, he calmed down. There was no way I could carry them all at once, so the children went first.
Il est un peu con le père aussi, pourquoi il va se battre avec moi?
I dropped the children off at the front door and promised them that I would be back with their parents. I couldn't leave, not while people were in trouble. The fire was getting much worse, so the woman went next.
Ah oui, mais je peux faire comme ça aussi. Ok.
When we got to the front door, all the woman said was, "Thank you. Please hurry." I couldn't leave, not while people were in trouble.
Ah, je m'appelle. J'ai pas vu l'étincelle.
By the time I managed to get back, the man was unconscious. I had to pick him up quickly, as I could tell the house was going to collapse at any moment.
Et puis je peux pas courir en plus. Je peux à peine sauter. Yeah.
I helped the family set up a tent so they had somewhere to stay. The kids were excited as they got to camp outside, but I think they knew they had just lost their home. When I mentioned my quest to clean a million things, the man said I should look through the rubble of the house, as they had no use for it. So, when everyone was making dinner, I looked through the wreckage. There wasn't anything I could clean, but to my astonishment, I found a TV set and a games console. With a bit of fiddling, I was able to get them to work. So I sat playing games with the kids until their parents said it was bedtime. As we talked, the man opened a bottle of wine. I asked what had happened. Why was everything so ruined? The man looked at the woman, then the woman sighed and said, "There was a war." "Yes, a war," said the man. "One side of the planet attacked the other, and before we knew, it was all over. Everything gone.
Just
Everything
fucking run.
destroyed."
Ça c'est pas mal ça comme
"Well, it's late,"
titre.
said the woman. "We should really get some sleep. Help yourself to anything you need, and we'll see you tomorrow." In the morning, I asked the man if he knew what had caused the fire that had destroyed their house. The man smiled. "Crap old house, bad wiring, constant electrical surges from the unreliable power plant. Take your
Puis le
pick,"
gamin est pyromane derrière.
he said. "If we had the money, we'd move to the mainland. But we can barely feed ourselves, let alone buy a new house, so for now we're left here with the rest of the scum." But he did say I should head to the mainland, as there would be plenty there for me to clean, and a better quality of rubbish. The man said, "Before the war, my lovely wife used to be a fisherman." "Fisherwoman? Fishing person?" "I used to catch fish," interrupted the woman, "and, seeing as you saved us all from the fiery end, maybe you would like to borrow my boat to get to the mainland." I was a little scared, but then they gave me some captain software and I was an old salty sea dog within minutes.
D'accord. Alors attends, moi je voulais retourner là-bas.
The gate was locked. I would need a key to open it.
Avant d'aller... Voilà, j'ai tout ça à récupérer. Alors ici, je ne peux rien faire.
I was surprised to see an old man, but not as surprised as he was. It turned out he was blind. He was kneeling on the floor with his hand in a drain. When I asked him what he was doing, he said his cat had crawled into the pipes, and he was trying to get her out. He was very happy when I offered to help. He said there was no way we could reach her from here, so if I was willing, I could make my way through the sewers and get her from the other end. He said he would turn off the water for as long as possible, but I would have to run, as the pipes would soon fill up again. I happily agreed. So he gave me a key. He said this will open all the sewer gates. Go through here, then down the ladder, and through the big door at the bottom.
Gary Gamel. Bah allez, fameux niveau des égouts. Hein.
I better run.
Ah, bon. Ah oui, en effet, oui. Ah la vache. Ah.
I better run.
Cours, gotta go fast, too fast. Bon, allez, concentration. Non, pas comme ça. Ah là là. Non. Ah. Je me gourre entre les touches. Hop. Ah. Heureusement que j'ai des vies à la fin. Hein. Voilà. Ah! Ok. Oh, je me fais avoir. Ah, mais en plus je me... Non, 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 non. Hop. Je vais te revoir. Ah mais pourquoi j'ai pas sauté? Bah là je saute mais... pour les objets. Hein. Ah non. Bon écoute, on va pouvoir les récupérer. Ok. Oh, j'étais juste devant. Non. Écoute, autant récupérer ça. Ouais. C'est pas comme ça. Ah, ça m'énerve. Ça... Ah là 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 là. Ça va pas. Mais je saute. Non. Ok, là j'essaye un truc, mais... Ah non, j'ai pas pris le mur comme il fallait. Mais forcément, je ne saute pas au bon moment. Hop, hop. Oh, sérieusement. Mais putain. Ah, cette étincelle à la con là. Hop.
I found
Oh.
the old man's cat. She
Mon
was
Dieu.
fine, if a little confused. I was horrified. It looked like me, but it shambled around
Merci.
like something from the film we watched on Halloween.
Ok, il y a des monstres. Non, non. Mais j'ai sauté. Alors attends, il n'y a pas moyen de... Commande. Manette. Parce que c'est un peu chiant en fait de... Alors, sauter, oui. Courir. Courir, courir, courir. On va plutôt mettre comme ça, on va voir ça. Non. Ah, c'est pas ça que je voulais faire. Ah, forcément. Ah, c'est un peu mal foutu leur truc. B, bah non, du coup non. Je mets le B. Bouton 6, mais qui... Attends. C'est un peu bizarre la configuration de leur truc là. Bon bah tant pis, je vais faire avec les touches qu'on m'a données. Voilà.
The man was happy to have his cat back. He looked so content with her sat on his lap. I told him about the thing I saw, but he just laughed and said, "Those bastard robots, they're always getting up through the pipes. Don't worry though, it'll never get through the big doors. If I had my way, we'd have blown up the lot of them when we had the chance." I wasn't sure what he meant, but I decided now wouldn't be the best time to tell him I was a robot.
J'avoue.
The man laughed and said, "Don't worry, I know who you are," and told me that he knew the old man. As we chatted, the man brewed himself some tea. He said that he had worked for the old man. In fact, he had lost his sight in one of the old man's factories. Strangely, he smiled at this thought. "He always did me right," he said. "When I had my accident, the old man said he would look after me. And he did. He always made sure I had enough money, and he let me move into this old pumping station on his land. Which reminds me, I have something here for you." He rummaged around behind a cupboard. Then he continued saying, "The old man wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but fate wouldn't allow it." He passed me a large box. It was empty. I thought about pretending to be excited, but the man said, "Wait a minute, it's empty, isn't it?" He slumped back in his chair. "I was robbed a few months ago," he said, almost in a whisper. "It's strange, they took practically anything metal, but left loads of food and a brand new saxophone." The man looked sad, so I thought I would try to change the subject. I told him about my quest to clean a million things. This at least made him smile. He said I was welcome to go back through the pipes anytime I wanted, as there were loads of old things in there that could be cleaned away.
Je pense pas que j'ai envie d'y retourner. Ça va aller. Truc à faire en haut. Non. Alors, du coup, je peux aller. Est-ce qu'il y a des trucs dans la maison? Non. Ok. Eh, on est à 10 000. Sur 1 million, c'est pas mal. Bon, je vais aller retourner près de la famille que j'ai sauvée là. Attends, là. Ça, je peux pas l'ouvrir. Ah. Ouh là là. Non. Ah, ils volent carrément. Non. Ah.
I took the fisherman's boat to the mainland. The fisherman was right. Everything was in pieces. Everything had been destroyed. I docked the boat in some ruins. They must have once been a town.
Merde. Attention.
I was confronted by a lovable fat old dog. He almost looked pleased to see me.
Aw.
Suddenly, 3 men appeared holding large guns. Or at least 2 men and what looked to be a pregnant woman. Incredibly, it was Mr. Silton.
Ah.
I thought you'd been shut down, he said. I mean, it's been years. I'm not really sure what happened, I replied. I then told him about me cleaning a million things. He laughed and said, nothing changes. He then showed me into what was surprisingly a really nice house. Please excuse my husband, said the pregnant lady. I'm Edwina, but everyone calls me Eddie. I believe you know this idiot. And that's Preston. We've met, said the small man. It was me that delivered that thing, remember? All you used to deliver was weed, mumbled Mr. Silton as he put the dog dish on the floor. And I was there that night, when this twat was off his face on mushrooms. Thanks for letting me and the dog stay, by the way. Yeah, well, we like the dog, said Mrs. Silton. And I suppose I've got you to thank for us meeting. What with you giving Barry those dodgy magic mushrooms? She pulled out an old photograph. It was one that Heather had taken the night I had saved Mr. Silton.
Ah oui, c'était l'une des secouristes. C'est vrai. Je me disais, sa tête, elle me dit quelque chose, mais oui.
It reminded me of everyone else, so I asked what had happened to them. Mr. Silton said Alice had a small place in the countryside. The professor had holed up in one of the old man's factories. Mr. Deck was, believe it or not, now a presenter on the only state television channel.
D'accord.
And Heather and her mother lived on a government compound where they both worked. I asked about the old man, surprised that Mr. Silton hadn't mentioned him. He's dead, said Mr. Silton. Sorry, I thought you knew. Anyway, said Mr. Preston, I thought you said that robot thing found the mushrooms for you, in that hoarder's manky old barn. Mr. Silton looked embarrassed. Well, said Mrs. Silton, I guess we've got you to thank for getting us together then. Time for bed, I think, said Mr. Silton. Make yourself comfy, and we'll see you in the morning.
Symbole d'Illuminati. Oula. Ah. La maison, c'est là où est le cœur. Trouver un moyen de rentrer.
The next day, I thought it might be a good time to ask about the war, judging by the look on everyone's faces. It wasn't. Well, the war, said Mr. Silton. Barry interrupted his wife. Can I see you for a minute? And dragged Mr. Silton out of the room, leaving me with Mr. Preston. All of a sudden, Mr. Silton appeared. How about a tune-up, he said. Mrs. Silton started to make some food, and Mr. Preston was playing with the dog, leaving me to chat with Mr. Silton. I said that I really wanted to see everyone else, but Mr. Silton said that it wouldn't be that easy. Traveling now, especially for a robot, is complicated. Go back to the house, you could even do some cleaning. Wait there and I'll work out a way to get you to each of them. I told him that I couldn't get into the main house because the hallway ceiling had collapsed. I have just the thing, said Mr. Silton, as he pulled some sort of card out of his pocket. If you can get into the caves under the house, you can use this security pass to get into the old man's laboratories. You can get into the main house that way. I was so excited, I would be able to get back into my old room. I said thanks, and made my way to the front door. Also, I think you might be able to help us out, said Mr. Silton, but we'll meet up back at the old man's house in a couple of days. You head there and we'll see you soon.
Ok. D'accord. Non mais... Voilà. Je voulais aller par là. Un sac poubelle que j'ai pas pris.
I wasn't sure what to do with this machine. The huge door was sealed shut. I wasn't sure how to get inside.
Ok, bon, on va retourner au bateau. C'est pas possible. Attention. Voilà.
I took the fisherman's boat to the old man's estate.
Alors, je sais pas si c'est... Je vais voir s'il n'y a pas une autre porte. Entrer dans le sous-sol. Là. Est-ce que ça c'est la maison du vieux? Ah, c'est peut-être là. Ça c'est le genre de musique, tu connais l'air, mais alors je connais ni la personne qui l'a faite, ni le nom de la musique. Et tu l'as tellement entendu partout.
As I walked through the old church ruins, I was surprised to hear Mr. Silton calling me. He said he had forgotten to give me something, and the church's community hall would be the perfect place to try it out. As soon as we walked into the hall, Mr. Silton said he had a present for me. It was a pair of Atlas gloves. They made me think of the old blind man with the cat, and his stolen Atlas gloves.
Ah, c'est lui qui l'a volé.
I wonder if Mr. Silton knew how lucky he was to still have them with a glove thief around. Mr. Silton asked me to try the gloves on and start chucking things around. But not him. He was very clear about that. Mr. Silton suggested we clean the hall. Of course I knew when he said we, he meant me. But I was happy to try out my new gloves. He said I should clear everything off of the basketball court and put the things on the floor either side. I fiddled with the settings for a bit, but when Mr. Silton saw I was having trouble, he produced a small manual. He explained that pressing down and X would pick the thing up. X would then throw the thing, and if I wanted to place it on the floor, I should again press down and X. He looked more and more confused as he read all this, but eventually he finished by saying, "Well, I hope that made more sense to you than it did to me."
Ça va, c'est pas compliqué. Non. Oh, attends, je peux peut-être tirer des trucs. Attendez. Petit Jésus, ça dégage. J'ai l'impression que je peux pas tout prendre en fait. Ah non, faut attendre. D'accord. C'est pas ça?
Let's see what else these gloves can do, said Mr. Silton as he flicked through the manual. He actually looked quite excited when he explained that holding X while walking into or under a falling thing would allow me to catch it. I must admit, I was then really happy when he suggested we make it a game, and I try to catch 10 basketballs. J'essaie de faire des paniers, mais ça va pas. Next, Mr. Silton suggested we make it a real game and see how quickly I could score 10 baskets. I enjoyed this so much. It felt just like the good old days. Except Mr. Silton wasn't as forgiving as the old man.
Ah, attends. Ah bah c'est aussi simple que ça en fait. toi, Kobe. Non. C'est pour toi, Kobe. Non, toujours pas. Non, mais... Voilà.
When I'd scored 10 baskets, Mr. Silton gave me what he called a high five. He said I now knew everything about the gloves and I should be able to continue through the basement of the church into the house. When I asked him if he was coming with me, he just laughed and said they would catch up with me in the main hall.
Alors. On est à 20 000 là.
I was stood in a gigantic cavern. When I looked down, I was horrified to see hundreds of corpses of those things. As horrible as it sounds, my steptoe-chip said they were things to clean. So clean them I would.
Ça se trouve, c'est des versions antérieures de moi-même. Je pense pas que je peux relancer ça.
That must be the door Mr. Silton talked about.
$30 000. Comment je peux l'attendre? Oh, attends, je vais juste aller là. Oh, c'est mignon quand tu t'arrêtes, il tient sa cravate. Alors, bon bah c'est... Alors attends, je peux peut-être ramasser la porte. Voilà. Enfin, soulever ça là, non? Non. Bon. Oh, c'est pas possible. Faut vraiment qu'il soit super haut. Voilà. Elle. Comment je fais pour arriver là? Ah, comme ça. Ouais.
The door was exactly as Mr. Silton had described it. I just hoped that the card he had given me was the security key and not just some backstage pass. Well, it opened the door, but soon an alarm went off. Something caught my eye. It was a small yellow sphere. The book next to it explained that it was a shield that would automatically take a hit for me when activated. The Y button took the shield in and out of storage, meaning I could save it for when the going got tough. It seemed that I started with 2 slots to carry shields, but I could upgrade to be able to carry more. If both I and the shield died in the same room, the Lazarus chip would bring us both back. It's almost as if the shield needed its sacrifice to mean something. It felt like a true friend, proving that even the simplest of faces can bring out an emotional reaction.
Oh, et ça me suit en plus, c'est mignon. Oh, quel con. Je peux faire comme je veux. Bon. Ok, là ça passe.
Merde.
Ah, ça a disparu. D'accord. Je vais pas remarquer.
Something literally caught my eye. I remembered the old man had installed some software that helped show me things that were interactive and how to interact with them. This must be what he was talking about.
Ouais.
The electron gun blew the power. I needed to turn it back on before I could fire again.
Ah. Ah non. Ok. Ah, il m'emmerde ce laser. Mais putain de merde. Forcément. Ah mais attends, je peux passer par là, je suis con. Je suis bête.
This seemed quite valuable.
40 000.
The video recorder's blinking light caught my eye. It must have been years since I had seen a film or TV show. Maybe I could take a little break from my quest and watch the film on the tape. As the video started, I was surprised to see the old man. "Hello, hello," he bellowed in his familiar tone. "This is test number, 107C. He continued as he read from a clipboard. "This unit still has 3 major issues. 1. The shell is so incredibly thick that the whole machine is still far too large and heavy. 2. The missile system is too unpredictable and aggressive. And 3. The trade-off between power and intelligence is far too great. I think the military capabilities would be far too dangerous in the wrong hands. I think we would be best to push forward with the Innocence Project." I didn't really understand a word of what he said, and I was slightly disappointed that he had recorded over the film, but it was nice to see the old man's face again. I wasn't sure what was going on, but suddenly, inanimate objects started to come to
Ah
life.
d'accord, ok. Je sens la tronche. Voilà, ça marche. En fait-il que je me prenne pas d'ici dans la tronche. Alors, bon. Pourquoi il s'accroche? Mais il est con quoi, pourquoi il s'accroche pas? Ah, fallait appuyer sur un d'accord. Ouh, ça marche. Merde.
I should try picking that up. Oh.
Ok. Oula, attends. D'accord. Mais pourquoi t'es pas allé à droite? Mais non mais... Ok. Mais putain de merde. Voilà. Ah oui, mais c'est un peu con parce que je peux pas sauter. Ah si, je peux faire comme ça, d'accord. D'accord. Mais non, pourquoi il fait comme ça? Bah, non mais récupère-le. Pas du tout là où je voulais. Mais non mais... Voilà. Mais c'est sans fin leur truc. Hop. Non mais faut que tu attrapes la chaîne. Mais attrape cette foutue chaîne. Voilà. Non, qu'est-ce que tu fais? Et c'est avec X ou c'est avec A qu'il faut choper la chaîne. D'accord, ok c'est bon. Fini. Mais non mais avance. faut. Et hop. Mais arrête d'aller dans cette porte. Non, pas surtout pas là. Putain, mais il est con quoi. Ok. D'accord.
Batteries come in all shapes and sizes.
Ah, d'accord, ok. Alors, comment je suis censé... Non. Ah, attends. D'accord, ok. Encore faut-il que j'arrête de faire de la merde. Mais non, mais pourquoi tu avances aussi vite? Tu m'emmerdes. Et oh putain, ça me saoule. Allez. Forcément. Ah oui, quand c'est pas les étincelles, c'est les clés. Cool. Ça avec. Ok. Elle est quand la sortie?
Seeing another VCR made me wonder if there were any more recordings of the old man. I rummaged behind the TV and was not surprised to find 2 more dusty old tapes. One just had hours of some strange sport. But the other had a recording of the old man. Hello, hello, came his voice again. Right, this is urgent. Cancel the nanobot program immediately. All production to be stopped. Contain the remaining units in these corrosion-proof canisters. Although I'm sure it's obvious, the old man continued. We have discovered that they are essentially unstoppable and can form a controlling intelligence around any object. Need I say more? Well, at least that explained why everything moved with minds of their own. I'd never been in this part of the house before, but I figured I would get back to more familiar surroundings once I made it through these laboratories.
Alors. bordel. Ah. D'accord. Mais oh putain. Il faut que je monte dessus. C'est très con ce que je vais faire. Sérieusement, putain. Mais putain, le doute, ça me touche, sérieux. Déjà, je sais pas pourquoi il veut pas enlever le truc. Hein. Ok. Ah d'accord, ça va juste rester... limite, j'avais facilement des ailes. Oh, sérieusement. Hop. Okay. Voilà. J'arrive même pas à voir correctement où est-ce que ça va. Je suis con. Oh, putain, derrière qui me touche. Bon, je vais me mettre sur le côté droit. Non, mais putain, je t'ai pas dit de te baisser. Faire de la merde aussi, c'est pas mal. Mais où est-ce que tu veux que j'aille? Je peux aller nulle part. Ça se passe partout, je peux rien faire. Je sais pas, n'importe quoi. Mais genre... sais pas où elle est. C'est par là. Oh. Bon, ça va, ils vont se regarder là. Ah, mais non. Ah, j'ai même pas le temps de regarder comment ça marche. D'accord. Oh, la ferme. Ah non, ça a compté. D'accord. Boss de merde. Ah, c'était intéressant, mais boss de merde quand même. C'est tout.
I needed to get back on the moving lift.
Oh, t'es sérieux, tu me fais recommencer là? Attends, c'est pas cool. Ça, c'est pas cool. Ok, ça va encore y arriver. Alors. Mais quel con. Ouais, tiens, je vais dire ça. Non, non, non. Mais que je suis bête, j'avais sauté. C'était chaud ça. Bah, je dois aller par là. Alors ça je l'ai détruit, ça c'est cool. Ah oui, comme ça. Putain, quel con. Tu vas me dire, je suis pas obligé de les éliminer, ces roues-là.
my shoes struggled to grip the slippery wall. I'd need to keep jumping to climb it.
D'accord.
The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large to get a decent grip on the planks. I needed something like a crowbar. The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large to get a decent grip on the planks. I needed something like a crowbar. The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large to get a decent grip on the planks. I needed something like a crowbar.
Comment veux-tu que je récupère quelque chose là-dedans? C'est là. Je brûle, on est d'accord.
The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large to get a decent grip on the planks. I needed something like a crowbar. The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large to get a decent grip on the planks. I needed something like a crowbar.
Ah, il me saoule. J'ai envie d'essayer un truc, mais il m'emmerde, je peux pas le faire. pas essayé cette porte.
The door was nailed shut, and my fingers were too large.
Je vais m'arrêter là pour aujourd'hui. C'est intéressant comme jeu, c'est bien foutu, c'est assez exigeant je trouve. Mais je continuerai demain. Allez, à plus.